Welcome to Fearless Emotion Management. I want to give you an overview today of some skills that you can use to better understand and manage things like anxiety and stress, and depression, relationship distress, suicide symptoms. I'm going to share a lot of information really quickly, so you can always go to sites.google.com/view/fear-less to get more information if this is a model that's interesting to you. I don't want you to feel blown over as if you've gone to a water activity and then got blown over by the fire hose. So please just recognize that this is an overview today. A little bit about my background. I graduated from the University of Utah in 2009 with my doctorate in psychology. I've been licensed since that time to practice psychology. I've worked in several places, VA hospital in Salt Lake City, working in the PTSD clinic. I also spent 8 years in private practice in Utah, and I've spent the last 5 years at BYU Idaho in the counseling center, where I work with 17 other counselors. I currently am living in Rexburg, Utah with my wife and 5 children. This is where I work, the Student Health and Counseling Center at BYU Idaho. And I'd like to start with this quote. Since ancient times, fear has limited the perspective of God's children. So Elder Ronald A. Rasband gave this quote in the 2018 General Conference of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he does a great job at outlining and describing how fear interferes with the ability of people to connect with God and with the Spirit. What I want to share with you today is that fear is not just a spiritual problem. In fact, fear is at the core of many emotional disorders. Things like anxiety, PTSD, depression, addiction, marital discord, suicide ideation are actually disorders of fear. Data from the World Health Organization can help us better understand how debilitating this fear is. When it comes to depression, almost 6% of the adult population is diagnosed or being treated for depression. Over 6% are being treated for and are diagnosed with anxiety disorders. When it comes to our children, we know that 1 in 3 adolescents will experience an anxiety disorder during their teen years. And 1 in 5 teens are experiencing high levels of depressive symptoms. If we look at the slightly older population among first-year college students, in 2017, a study across 98 American colleges found that 2 in 5 were so depressed they were struggling to function. 3 in 5 were feeling overwhelming anxiety, and 1 in 5 of these college freshmen were so stressed in the last year that they considered suicide as a means of addressing the problem. A major task in managing emotions is to train our brains to recognize the difference between immediate physical danger and emotional danger. Immediate physical danger requires lower brain structures. This is a non-conscious process of dealing with immediate physical threat. These are often called the fear responses, or freeze, fight, or flight. Emotional dangers, on the other hand, require much higher order brain functioning, complex planning to deal with the threat. They need calm and reason in order to deal with these kinds of pains and these kinds of threats. Emotional disorders like stress, anxiety, depression, suicide, and PTSD are the result of your brain treating emotional dangers as if they are immediate physical dangers. You can train your brain to differentiate between immediate physical danger and emotional danger by learning and regularly practicing the 4 steps of the fearless emotion management. First is to find yourself and your safety. Ease your lizard brain. Assure your security guard, and learn how repetition and nourishment literally grow hope in the brain. A quick disclaimer This fearless emotion management is a self-help strategy and should not be construed as professional, personal advice for you. If you have moderate to serious mental health problems, please meet with a mental health provider or get additional help in some way along with using this self-help program. Let's start with finding yourself and your safety. When I'm talking about finding yourself and your safety, I'm talking about the conscious you located in your frontal lobes. Without your frontal lobes, you're no longer conscious. This area of the brain requires a lot of oxygen and glucose in order to function, in order to help you to deal with your daily functioning. However, when your brain perceives immediate physical danger, that blood and along with its oxygen and glucose leave the frontal lobes and go to the large muscle groups. And this is very adaptive for immediate physical threat because you don't need to be smart when you are in immediate physical danger. You just need to be strong and fast. However, when you're not in immediate danger, you need that blood back in your frontal lobes. So, find yourself through noticing that you're having a fear response. This is called interoception. Use your body to tell you what's happening. Ask yourself, what physical symptoms is my body experiencing right now? Maybe you have tension in your neck or your heart is pounding. Maybe your leg's bouncing or your foot is jittery. Maybe you have a tight or upset stomach. You have a jaw clenching or heaviness in your chest. Maybe you feel numbness or low energy, sweaty palms, racing thoughts, irritability, breathlessness, agitation, disconnected. These are all signs of a possible fear response in your body. Just noticing that you're having a fear response requires you to use your frontal lobes and thus starts drawing blood back into your brain where you need it. Now, quick note, Dr. Johnson is a Ph.D., not an M.D., so please get a medical checkup before assuming your symptoms are due to the fear response. So, something scared your brain. Let's make sure you're not in any kind of danger. So let's look for your safety. Here's how you can do it. Get your head up. Right now, wherever you're at, get your head up, use your eyeballs and your ears, and spend 10 seconds literally looking for and listening for safety. Go ahead and do that now. While you're doing this, ask yourself this question. Who is trying to kill me? The question might seem ludicrous, except that if you were in a fear state, your body was perceiving that you were trying to be killed or injured by someone or something. So let's show it that you're not. This process, again, requires frontal lobe activity and starts to draw the blood back up to the frontal lobes where you need it. Finding yourself and your safety is simply this. Notice the sensations in your body that tell you you're having a fear response, and then get your eyes up and listen with your ears to notice you are immediately physically safe. You can train your brain to differentiate between immediate physical danger and emotional danger by first learning this very important step and practicing to find yourself and your safety. Once you've done that, you've gotten good at finding yourself and your safety, let's look at what part of your brain got your body clenched up so fast. We're going to meet your lizard brain. When I refer to the lizard brain, I'm actually talking about your autonomic nervous system. I only call it the lizard brain because it acts like a nervous lizard responding to everything that comes along. Here is where the freeze, fight, or flight responses originate. The fear responses are part of your hindbrain or your autonomic nervous system. These are actual neural pathways. They extend down into your body. One is the dorsal vagal parasympathetic nerve, extending down in your body to get it ready to shut down in response to overwhelming threat. The other is the sympathetic nervous pathway, extending down in your body to get you prepared to deal with the threat. Again, these are very helpful responses when you're in immediate physical danger. When you're not, we have a different name for these responses. So when you're not in immediate physical danger, the freeze response, things like numbing out, feeling hopeless, having no desire to do things, low energy, lack of interest in things. Instead of the freeze response, this is depression. So depression is the freeze response occurring when no immediate physical threat is present. The fight or flight response. When we're not in immediate danger, what are these called? Things like a rapid heart rate, overbreathing, stomachs in a knot, tension up through the head and the neck, jittery legs, all of these things. What are these called when we're not in immediate physical danger? These are called anxiety. So anxiety is the fight or flight response occurring when no immediate physical threat is present. Emotional disorders are the result of fear, or in other words, the freeze, fight, or flight, repeatedly trying to manage your life when you're already immediately physically safe. When you're immediately physically safe, a relaxed muscle body is a healthy way to get blood back to your frontal lobes so you can deal with emotional dangers. We need that blood up in your frontal lobes before we can really move into the next step. Let me give you an example of how we can do this. Calmly, and I hope you'll do this now with me, calmly roll your shoulders back and down. Now slightly part your lips and your teeth. Now sigh gently. And do this 3 times. Now you can use that idea of interoception to look at your body and notice changes that are coming over your body. Notice perhaps the relaxation response that is occurring for you. Now I want to emphasize that this little exercise may not be for everybody. It helps many people to begin to trigger a relaxation response, which is what we're looking for. If you were able to do that with this exercise, you now have blood back in your frontal lobes, which is where we need it. Why does this work? Because the body has so many neural pathways going from the body back up to the lizard brain to give it feedback on what's going on. This is what literally makes it possible for us to use our bodies to calm our mind. So even though our lizard brain might be receiving the message from other parts of the brain that you're in danger, you've assessed that you're safe, and then you relaxed your body and you're flooding your lizard brain with evidence that you're okay. So the relaxation response takes place. There are many ways to do this, by the way. Changing your posture, changing your muscle tension, relaxing, changing your breathing are all ways that you can use to get a relaxed muscle body when you're in a immediately physically safe environment. If you go to the website and run this PowerPoint slide on your own, you can click on some of these buttons and it will take you to other ideas and ways of getting a relaxed muscle body. And there's that Google site again, if you're interested. So easing your lizard brain is simply this. After you've recognized you're having a fear response and also used your eyes and ears to notice that you're safe, then create a relaxed muscle body to get blood flow back to your frontal lobes. You can decrease your stress and anxiety and depression when you train your brain to differentiate between immediate physical danger and emotional danger by regularly practicing to ease your lizard brain. Now, you have blood up in your frontal lobes, and we need it there because we're going to try and figure out what got your lizard brain activated in the first place. Now it's time to meet your security guard. You all have one, it turns out. Down inside your brain, in your limbic system, is your amygdala. Its job, at least one of its jobs, is your immediate survival. There's a couple of rules when it comes to immediate survival. One is that pain is bad, avoid it. And the second is that pleasure is good, seek it. By the way, these two rules are very effective for immediate survival. So, your amygdala, your security guard, has two main tasks. First is if your security guard sees pain or pleasure, it activates the autonomic nervous system to avoid the pain or get more of the pleasure. So, this is what was telling your lizard brain to get you activated or to shut you down. Your security guard is also designed to try and figure out and remember what causes you pain or pleasure, and then keep that in mind so you avoid that pain in the future. So, something painful happens. A place in your brain, one of those is the insula, lights up, letting your security guard know that you're experiencing pain. Or something pleasurable happens. Your nucleus accumbens lights up, releasing dopamine into your brain. This is pleasurable, and your security guard sees this. Your security guard then links that pleasure or pain to whatever you're experiencing or thinking about. That's how fears are born. Let's go through a few examples. Let's say a child sees a red glowing object on top of a countertop. Most children are intrigued and interested, and their first impulse is to touch it. Of course, when they do touch it, their insula lights up because they just got burned. They experience pain. Well, the security guard is there to see this, so it files this information away, puts it in a large filing cabinet in a process we call encapsulation. Now, of course, your security guard doesn't have a filing cabinet. It's actually growing new neural connections, but the filing cabinet works as a good metaphor here. What has happened is that you now, or this child now, has a permanent automated fear of touching red glowing objects for the rest of their life, and it only took one instance of experience in order to learn this fear, and it's a very healthy and useful fear to have. Let's look at another example. Let's say we have a child attempting to play with others on the playground. All of us are driven from our hindbrains forward to socially connect with others. However, what about when the other kids won't play with him? When that occurs, pain happens in the brain in the same place that it happened when the child touched the red hot stove. The insula lights up. The security guard is there to watch this process. Information is encapsulated, and now we have in this child an automated fear of social interaction. If we're not careful, we have the development of social anxiety. Another example, let's take work or school. Now, let's introduce to work and school things like a lack of control, unclear job expectations, dysfunctional workplace dynamics, sexual discrimination and harassment, extremes of activity, lack of social support, work-life imbalance. All of these cause pain in the insula. The security guard is there to see this and starts the process of encapsulation. Now we have that automated fear of work or of school or whatever activity we're engaged in. Sometimes, if this isn't managed, you get the development of burnout. Let's take another example. Let's take a caring, compassionate human being, and let's give them a compliment for an accomplishment, like getting an A in class, or giving a good talk, or looking thin. The security guard is there to say, hey, we like that, that felt good, encapsulates this information, and now we have an automated fight or flight response, in other words, a compulsion to get more compliments for accomplishments. This can be, if not carefully managed, the foundation for perfectionism or fixed mindset. My worth becomes based upon the next compliment I get for accomplishing something. And this can be incredibly dangerous to emotionally and psychologically for this process to occur. Let's take another example. Let's take it up a notch. Let's now put somebody in pain. And now you understand that physical and emotional pain are the same thing. They both cross the same neural pathways in the insula, and your security guard cannot tell the difference between physical and emotional pain. All it sees is that you're in pain, and it's going to try and avoid that pain. So while in pain, let's now present something pleasurable like alcohol or drugs or pornography, gaming, social media, compliments for accomplishments, shopping, gambling, anything that causes a pleasure release in the brain. Of course, the security guard loves pleasure and assumes that it's good for us. So it encapsulates this. It's got the presence of pain plus the presence of pleasure. This all gets put away, and now we have an extreme fight or flight response, an extreme compulsion to get more pleasure to solve the pain. In other words, the security guard just learned that pleasure is the answer to pain. Now we have addiction. When a learned fear or compulsion is not serving you, then it's time to assure your security guard. One way to think of this is to deal with the movies in your mind. Emotional fears and emotional dangers are movies in the mind. Why do I call these movies? It's kind of like your security guard has this inside office where it has information coming through monitors, and it's constantly looking for anything that might be of a threat to you. So I call this information movies. We've talked about a couple of these movies that play, the pain center, the pleasure center. There's also your five senses, the things you see, taste, smell, hear, touch. There's also your imagination. And it's important to know that all of these, to the security guard, are just as important and just as real as the next one. Here's an example. If your security guard is like mine, then this image instantly produces a fear response. And if this is all that my security guard can see, I'm very quickly going to start feeling my heart racing and my breath change because my security guard called up my lizard brain to get me activated into a fear response to get away from or try and beat up these really scary images. However, this is just an image, and I need to help my security guard understand that, to put this movie up on the movie screen to give it better context so my security guard can see that while it's still a scary image, it is just an image. So we want to assure your security guard that while the movie it's watching is scary, it is just a movie. So maybe you have some terrifying memories. Maybe you have memories of abuse from childhood, sexual assault, a car accident, or some other awful tragic thing in a relationship or otherwise. These are terrifying memories. They're things that actually did happen, and they're not happening now. Fears about the future. Some people are gifted at worrying, and worrying is a gift. The problem is if when a problem is introduced to you and you can find 20 ways that it's going to go terribly, horribly wrong, and your security guard assumes that all of those are happening right now, then we've got a problem. Unwanted feelings or body sensations that can sometimes cause fear, a fear response in the body. The security guard says, oh no, something's going wrong. Maybe it's the negative beliefs about yourself. Things like, I'm not good enough. The moment my brain says that, and if it's all it can see, then I'm going to have an automated fear response. It hurts to be socially disconnected. I'm too broken, or if people really knew me, all of these statements are going to cause me instant pain, and my security guard's going to want to do something about it. It's useful. It turns out I don't have to get rid of the memories, the fears, the negative beliefs about myself. All I need to do is help show my security guard that they're movies. Frequently practicing to show your security guard that thoughts, feelings, memories, and sensations are movies in the mind can be vital to recovering from stress, anxiety, and depression. So while it seems really simple, if you can begin to regularly practice many times a day, noticing and saying things like, oh, I'm experiencing this sad feeling movie, or whatever feeling that it is that you're having. Or here's that heavy chest sensation movie, or whatever sensation that you have frequently. Ah, there is my being bullied memory. This is just a movie about an experience that may have taken place. It's not taking place now, therefore it's a movie. I'm having the I'm an ugly loser thought movie, or whatever thought that you have that's scary. Notice that it's a thought, it's a movie, and that's all it is. A Vietnam veteran shared this with me at the VA hospital once, and I'd like to share it with you. Thoughts are the serpents that slither up our spines. You've got yours, and I've got mine. First we can't think, and then we can't feel, because we're too busy thinking our thoughts are real. Vietnam veterans, the combat veterans that I worked with, understood terrible, scary, frightening memories. And they too had to learn that those terrible, horrible things that happened did happen, and they weren't happening now. They're movies in their mind. There's a couple of other ways to deal with movies. One of the ways is to change the movies, distract yourself. Another is to change the meaning of the movies. If you're interested, you can go online and click on some of these buttons to learn better how distraction or something like resourcing can help you to have a needed respite from thoughts that might be invading your mind. Another one is change the meaning of the movies. These are methods that really begin to help in the recovery and better management of anxiety, depression, PTSD. You can again go online and click on some of these buttons to get some other ideas about how you can change the meaning of the movies. Again, that is sites.google.com/view/fear-less. So assure your security guard is just this. Once you've eased your lizard brain so you have blood flow back in your frontal lobes, then change your relationship with your emotional fears, emotional dangers, and emotional pain. You can decrease your stress, anxiety, and depression when you train your brain to differentiate between immediate physical danger and emotional danger by regularly practicing to assure your security guard. Now that you've used your mind to calm your body and have blood back in your frontal lobes, let's learn how you can keep it there. Here's where we're going to talk about repetition and nourishment, how we can use those to grow. When I talk about growing hope, I'm talking about literally growing a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. I call it the hope muscle. As it turns out, if this area of the brain is atrophied, if this anterior cingulate cortex is atrophied, then your security guard, your limbic system, decides how you react to things. This is called fear-based living or limbic system dominance. If we're looking in religious terms, it can also be referred to as the natural man is in charge. If, however, this anterior cingulate, this hope muscle, is exercised and strong, it turns out that you then get to decide how you react to things. You have what's called value-based living or frontal lobe dominance. In other words, you have the ability to hope. In spiritual terms, this could be referred to as yielding to the enticings of the Holy Spirit. In other words, you and your own desires, your own intuitions are now in charge. So, how do you go from fear-based living to value-based living? Turns out, every time you find yourself in your safety, every time you ease your lizard brain or assure your security guard, each time you do one of these, it's kind of like doing a hope muscle curl, because it causes firing between your frontal lobes and your limbic system and your security guard. Every time this tissue fires, it grows. New neural connections are made and strengthened. By the way, it's not helpful to expect results overnight. If you wanted to build a bicep, for example, going a couple of times to the gym on the weekend is not going to do it. The same is true of the brain. Sometimes our brains, maybe because of past experiences or biological predispositions, our anterior cingulate, our hope muscle, might be severely atrophied, and it could take months and sometimes years to regrow. It does happen. So it's important to know that it is growing. It just might take more than a couple trips. So value-based living and frontal lobe dominance occurs when we strengthen this hope muscle. Repetition grows hope, but not just repetition. We can encourage this process along by thinking about what things would enhance the growth of muscles. Because it turns out the healthy things we can do to grow muscles are also very healthy for the brain and brain tissue. So, what are some of those things? We often refer to them as TLCs, or therapeutic lifestyle changes. Things like sleep, exercise, nutrition and diet, time in nature, relationships, recreation, relaxation and stress management, religious and spiritual involvement, contribution, and service to others. All of these are actually ways to encourage neural development in the brain. If you're interested in learning more about them, you can look up Roger Walsh TLC. Just Google that term and you'll find articles and information about it. It's important to notice that we're talking about self-help. So if you're only having mild symptoms, these things can actually fully manage those mild symptoms. If, however, you're having moderate to severe symptoms of depression or anxiety, then these things will very much help, though you may need additional resources, either professional or otherwise, to manage your depression and anxiety. What we do know is that while these TLCs don't always cure depression and anxiety, certainly doing them will increase your ability to manage depression and anxiety. So repetition and nourishment grow hope. As you see signs of improvement from practicing the fearless emotion management steps, then keep repeating those steps and nurture your brain with the TLC to literally grow hope in your brain. I want to return to that quote I gave you earlier. Since ancient times, the freeze, fight, or flight response of the body has limited the perspective of God's children and led to spiritual and emotional disorder. I hope that Elder Rasband is not upset with this neurological interpretation of what he said, and it fits with our understanding currently of the brain and the way it works. The 4 steps again, 4 steps in 4 weeks for fearless emotion management are to find yourself in your safety, ease your lizard brain, assure your security guard, and repetition and nourishment grow hope. Just a few closing thoughts. For those with more severe or biologically based mental health challenges, consider combining multiple strategies like self-help and medication or counseling or coaching or other resources. Don't try and do this alone. It turns out that occasionally we all need somebody to step in and be our frontal lobes for a period of time while we are recovering. Thank you for listening. I hope that this was helpful. If you have questions or you want information, you can go to sites.google.com/view/fear-less, or you can contact me at johnsondal@byui.edu. Thank you again.